Where the hell are we?
40 miles from Germany.
My name is Colonel Martin Bach of the German Protection Squad.
This is a bomber aircraft, yes?
What was your target?
I spent 10 years destroying anything that got between me and Colonel Bach.
Who are you looking for?
An SS officer. Where is he?
In a compound called the CONDOR'S nest.
Don't shoot!
They say the man who seeks revenge should dig 2 graves.
Does your colonel deserve to die?
Yes, he does.
Lucky for you, I know how to fly a plane.
Heinrich Himmler is dead.
You're wrong. The real Himmler went into hiding, recruiting German veterans into an elite army of spies and guards across the continent.
There is a Jewish agent and an American trying to get to the CONDOR'S nest.
Hello.
There you go.
yeah. Just click to join audio there.
How are you?
I'm great. Are we on the air yet, or is this the pre?
Well, air is such an elusive term, James.
Self fluid. Yeah.
We're recording. Yeah. Good morning, right? Yeah. You're in LA.
Yeah. I'm in LA. Yeah.
All right. So it's reasonable. It's 9-ish or 10-ish rather. Oh,
it's
very
10-ish.
Good. So, I've been doing this kind of podcast for like 11, 12 years. Just ridiculously long time. And when I say that I wanted to invite you on since the beginning, I'm really not exaggerating.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. But I mean, because it's always sort of been steeped or rooted in the origins of it. We're always in independent film. And so your relationship with independent film goes way back. And
sure.
Yeah. And so I was very impressed by the Hal Hartley films when they came out. That's how I discovered you, of course, as many people have. And Hal himself has been on here a bunch of times. So
oh, really?
Yeah, as have many from the stable from the Hartley universe.
That's so great. Yeah. I'm in touch with him now and then. I when I was in New York, I used to see him a lot. I used to live in New York too. I get an email now and then. I'll keep tabs on what he's doing. He just wrote a novel. Has he promoted that?
No, and it's impossible to keep up. I was actually I'm kind of I took some things out of storage with the intention of closing out my storage. And by the way, people watching, yes, we're going to talk about Condor's Nest in just a minute.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, but
all these podcasts have a rambling, shambling intro before you get to the meat of it.
It's the nicest thing anybody said.
I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah. Well, I had to get that out of the way, because
thank you.
Every time your name came up in it just never worked out in the timing. And so finally, when this worked out, I'm like, this is
great.
Fantastic. So, and what better way or to introduce you to the podcast than, through the character of Heinrich Himmler. I mean, that's
exactly.
Anyway, well, it's great to hear you talk about. And also the other thing is you're exactly 1 week older than I am. I just discovered that too.
You were born September 10th, 1963?
No, 24th.
24th. Oh, older. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at math.
Well, neither am I, but I did figure that one. Right. Now
let me ask you this. Do you identify as a boomer or a Gen Xer? This is a controversy.
That's true. I'm glad you brought it up. I would say I would like to say Gen Xer, but we're on the cusp of that, right? I mean,
we're on the cusp. Whoever decides these things decided that Gen X begins in 65, I believe. Although there are people who believe that it starts in like 63. And of course, Douglas Copeland, who wrote the book Generation X, was born in 61. But my thing is, although I love Creedence Clearwater Revival, I have more of an emotional connection to Nirvana. And that for me is how you define it.
Well done. I'll take that. And you're 1 week older.
Fair enough.
So.
But yes, high five, fellow Virgo.
Exactly. I am a Libra.
Oh, you are Libra. See, I don't know astrology either. You're learning all the things I don't know anything about.
Again, on the cusp, though, people will say, but I just embrace the Libra. See, we don't even have to discuss Condor's Nest. Not that your publicist would be very happy about that, but no. This was, I am curious. This is like is a fictional kind of revenge story, much, this is a new genre that's been blossoming over the last years since Tarantino came around.
I suppose, but it's also kind of an old genre. Like, I guess The Man in the Iron Castle is an old book, and there, alternate history has been around for a while. In literature, certainly. Right.
Sure. So people, but I guess here's my question. Do you do in the particular research for this particular role? Because it's tricky, right? On one hand, you'd probably want to do some research on Himmler's character. On the other hand, you're playing him in a role or in a story that didn't really take place.
Yes. Well, yeah, I read a lot about him. The other thing that was helpful is the internet has audio of speeches he made.
Oh my God, that's true.
And
Right.
the other great challenge, and part of the reason this was so interesting to me, is our director, Phil Blattenberger, wanted the people playing the Nazis to speak German in the film, but the bulk of the actors are not German, and the bulk of the actors did not speak German. So I had a crash course in German, which I did
do that?
Just spending a little time every day with a couple of language apps, and
Really?
there's a lot of helpful stuff online. Yeah, and basically I had 2 months to prepare, and I basically taught myself conversational tourist German, and then it was just a matter of learning a few new words, understanding sentence structure, and then trying to get the accent right. And as it happens, I have a brother-in-law who is a German by birth. My sister lives in Germany and is married to a German gentleman. And so I Skyped with him, and he helped me with my pronunciation and accent once I got up to snuff a little bit. And then there was a very helpful actor named Torsten Keller, who's a German national, who's in the cast. And he was very generous with his time when I was on set to also help me speak that. But yeah, I read a lot of biographical information about Himmler. I mean, the movie is sort of in the tradition of The Boys from Brazil, a post-war story.
Yeah.
Where based on, I mean, it is a fact that there were Nazis who fled to South America.
Sure. Oh yeah, many.
In this case, an American soldier whose team were slaughtered by a German general during the war hears through the grapevine that this general is hiding out in South America, and he goes to seek revenge. And then he stumbles upon a conspiracy. And it turns out Hitler didn't die at the end of World War II. He's actually still alive, and that's our fictional element.
It's great, and right, because he supposedly was being seen by I don't know. He was captured, and then he ended up biting a cyanide pellet, right, in real life.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, that's what the story.
A bunch of the high-level ones committed suicide.
Right. In that particularly brave manner that they
couldn't imagine a world without led by National Socialism.
There you go. It's a good timing on this film, by the way.
With the horrific resurgence of
and
these ideas and thoughts in the Trump era.
Yeah, and the sort of this like toying with fascism again. There's two sides to this. Let's not be so quick to judge.
I mean, not to get into that avenue too much, but when I was young, one always thought, how on earth could that have happened, Nazi Germany? And now, having experienced the last few years ago, I can see how that could happen.
Right. We don't have to go too far afield and into that, but it is, you see, when there is is usually racism and then also economic economic
and the whole thing of the power of victimization. Kind of an oxymoron, I guess.
Yeah.
But, you wielding victimization as the big thing. Just fill in the blank. We're unhappy because of these people. And that's a sadly perennial point of view. But the movie is also just a sort of old-fashioned Dirty Dozen style, war movie.
I was
kind
very
of a throwbacky. It's kind of a throwbacky genre piece in a way.
It is, yeah, you're right. And I was also what occurred to me watching it was I was impressed by how the money was spent, on this film. I mean, it's just it is a throwback, and it is like it stands up. I think people enjoy this because of that. It's it doesn't go as far as mustache twirling, although the meeting meeting was close to it. I'd say the meeting of the Nazis at the Condor's Nest that was, but it really is entertaining in that same way that the post-war movies that our parents enjoyed so much. And
it's interesting because it's an independent, it's a low budget indie.
Yes, exactly.
Excuse me. But there are actually scenes that were shot in South America. My stuff was shot in North Carolina, but there are actually some stunning location shots that give it a really impressive sort of visual impact.
Yeah. And again, I mean, it looks like an expensive movie. I was impressed with it. Does.
I was really impressed when I saw the screening for the first time. Because I hadn't been down to South America. I didn't know anything about those locations.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, your brother-in-law, what he thought of your performance after he saw or maybe he hasn't even seen it yet.
He hasn't seen it yet.
Oh, okay.
He hasn't seen it yet, but I will. I look forward to hearing his feelings. But he was very complimentary about the accent. I basically I listened to the Himmler speeches. I mean, I'm sure to a native German, they'll think, good job.
That's
the way sometimes you'll see a Brit or someone do an American accent that doesn't quite fit correctly.
Yeah.
But I to my American ear, it sounded good.
Well, that's
and
great.
It was really fun. I haven't learned another language in decades. So I had been to Germany. I'd been to Berlin once. And I'd basically learned an Entschuldigung, which means excuse me, which I used on the subway.
And choose.
Yeah.
Which is how everybody says goodbye.
That's
right. But I did notice, like, even the point where you're it's also, you have to, it's not only learn it convincingly, but you also have to be able to emote and act and emphasize certain words that are maybe you wouldn't in English. If I didn't know who you were, I would have thought you were a German actor. Of course, I don't know German.
Yeah, I was in a play once, and it was a sort of comedic play where we played, different characters. And at one point I played a French guy, and I thought, well, this is comedic, but I want to do the best French accent as possible. And I listened to a French man speaking English over and over, and I really tried to get the accent down. And then after I did the play, and then one night after the play, I came out, and there were people from the audience there, and there was a French guy there. And he came up to me and he said, I saw you do that one character who came out with the suit, and I thought, what accent is he doing? And then I realized you're being French. And then he said this great thing. He said, you can go further with it, because it's not just about the accent, it's about the energy. And he basically meant you can actually not be afraid to be more
right.
Be more Frenchy. And so, and the thing about Himmler and that those people, Hitler as well, there's a very over-the-top oratorical quality they have to their speeches with lots of rolling R's, you know.
Right.
And he's
a
not
theatricality
always
to it.
there's a theatricality to it because they were being theatrical, you know. Himmler himself is essentially a nerd who didn't get into combat in World War I and then was playing soldier by creating the SS, you know, which again is extremely relatable to our time. He's basically a basement Reddit thread character who ended up having a lot of power.
All right. Well, speaking of actors that, you know, I'd been admiring for many years, and who he's also in the same scene that we were talking about a moment, like, you know, in this meeting room, which is Bruce Davison.
That's right.
Who's been a hero. Like I remember going all the way back to my childhood, and just somebody who I've always been so fascinated. Like, how did this guy become like a big actor? He just seems so gentle and sensitive, you know, and
he does have that quality. Starting in MAME, The Lathe of Heaven, please.
The Lathe of Heaven. Who was with The Lathe of Heaven with who was opposite him in that? I'm trying to remember. Is this
the actress?
No, I was thinking of I made the screen version of it. The
yeah, it was I think it was like a Canadian TV movie that was shown on PBS in like the 70s.
Okay,
I remember very well as a kid. But I forget who else was in that.
Yeah, me too.
But
anyway,
I am this is another big area for me. I'm a huge fan of actors and character actors.
Me too.
From all generations. I love old films. One of my favorite actors is Charles Laughton. I saw you had Simon Callow as a guest.
Oh yeah,
recently.
Yeah.
And
thank you for checking it out.
Oh yeah, that's a great book. His biography of Laughton is one of my favorite showbiz.
Oh, good to know, because I was trying to figure out where because I felt so bad because I do read a lot of books on film, but I hadn't gotten to Simon. It's just a
hole. No, Simon Callow is a great writer. I also have his Orson Welles books. But yeah, so when I saw Bruce Davison was there, I remember the day he showed up. I was at the hotel sitting outside at some tables having some dinner with Torsten, the German fellow from the movie, and Bruce Davison sort of ambled along, and we invited him over, and I was thrilled. It's one of the delights of doing this for a living is I love the old pros, and so you become a professional, and then you meet people who you grew up watching or who you've admired, and you're sort of on the circuit together, and that's a really nice thing. And he was a lovely person, and I always take my cues from these people. If he wasn't chatty, I wasn't going to bug him, but he was. And, I was peppering with questions. So that was a great pleasure. Yeah, there's actually a bunch of old pros in this. Michael Ironside is in it.
Michael Ironside. And he has a great role in that, too. He had a juicy role. That's fun. Yeah. Well, that's great. So it sounds like there is even a sense of camaraderie on the set.
Oh, yeah. And this is very much a sort of ensemble movie. I mean, you have your main hero, but then you have all these sort of supporting characters around him, basically. And I think the default with most actors is a sort of camaraderie. Now and then you'll meet an asshole, but it's rare.
Right. Well, and also there's no big Hollywood, if there's no huge Hollywood name maybe on the set at that time, yourself, of course, exceptionally speaking. But I mean, no, I shouldn't tease, but if you don't, I mean, I think that also probably helps. I don't know, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I have not been on a set with one of those guys. But...
Yeah, well, I think on this, there was certainly a sense that, we're all like, working actors, to various degrees of reputation, but I've met some big timers who are, who are very down to earth and pleasant. There's there's an old thing that it's like an old director saying, which is treat the actor like a star and the star like an actor, so give your working character people the respect you would give Tom Cruise, and then treat Tom Cruise like he's a working character actor, because he'll appreciate that.
I had
in that sense, that means everyone's basically just trying to do the same thing, and in that sense, everyone's an equal.
Sure, it's all about the project, right? It's all about making
serving the project. Yeah.
And right, and the director. I had on Tom Cruise's cousin on just the other day.
Yes, William Mapother.
Oh, so you know him too. Okay.
Oh
So
yeah,
you're-
well I know this is my bread and butter.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's great to hear about what more about you and what you're about. I don't always get to know people quite, but it seems like you're really an actor's actor. It turns out, and I'm guessing you love being like a character actor.
I do. I mean, I when I was around 18, 19, I was going to a community college in New Jersey, and I met a guy my age, our age, I should say.
Yes, right.
And this guy was into old movies, and I wasn't particularly into old movies. I loved the 1933 King Kong because they used to show it. I grew up in New Jersey, and they used to show it on a New York station. That's right. Every Thanksgiving, there was a New York station in the 70s that showed King Kong. Now, it's not a Thanksgiving movie. Someone just showed it. I think they probably showed it one year. It got good ratings because everybody was home, and the dads were like, hey, this is a great movie,
Yeah.
And so I loved that movie, but my friend was into old stuff, and he had a lot of early VHSs of old movies from the 30s and stuff. And we used to hang out and watch these films. And he had already at a young age had an encyclopedic knowledge of actors. And so I learned a lot, and I also got seriously into this stuff. And this is before I even thought I wanted to be an actor, but I was just drawn to old films and to the performances from that era at a very young age. So it's always, I'm not into sports. I have nothing against them, but this is kind of my sports. This is my,
stats, like
I mean, I got
with
plenty
baseball
of stats
stats
on actors. I can tell you how old William Powell was when he met my man Godfrey.
Well, it also does go through a generational thing. I mean, I don't know if this had much of an impact. And I do want to just say, remind people again, the name of the film is Condor's Nest, and it's in theaters, on digital and on demand as of January 27th, and includes James Urbaniak as among its cast members. But when we were growing up back in the 70s, essentially right into the 80s, as young people, we didn't have a plethora of channels. We didn't have devices. We just had what was on TV, and what was on TV a lot were old movies. I mean, you kind of just started to watch Humphrey Bogart and knew who all those, people were, Mae West, and
true. And then when I moved into New York in my 20s,
they were all alive too, by the way.
Go to revival theaters. Yes, and those people were alive, and they would end up acting on Love Boat and stuff in their old age.
Right.
And the other funny thing
in the revival theaters.
One of the reasons my friend got into this stuff is because his father worked for RCA, and in the 70s, they got one of the first VCRs. And when they first made VCRs, the first VHS tapes were all old movies. It wasn't a thing yet where stuff that was in theaters was on video right away.
Right.
That wasn't even considered. So that was just the stuff that was available, sort of golden age Hollywood stuff, which was not considered at that time, a huge market, selling that stuff. So, but he was just disposed to like this stuff. And then when I discovered it, I loved it. And sort of that began this lifelong love of sort of classic Hollywood, but from all eras. I love actors from today, but that's always been an obsession of mine. And then eventually I thought, I guess I want to do this too. I want to be one of these people.
Did you go to Purchase? How did you meet Hal? We'll wind it down in a moment.
Yeah, Hal Harley went to SUNY Purchase,
right.
But no, I just went to this community college in New Jersey.
Oh, you mentioned
school called Brookdale, where I started going there, and they had a big, beautiful performing arts center and some very encouraging drama teachers. And I started taking acting classes there and doing a ton of plays. And then after a little while, I moved into New York, and I met Hal Hartley in Manhattan in the early 90s. There was a theater company where I did some work, a company called Cucaracha Theater, which worked downtown, sort of the off-Broadway world, which was a very exciting, very creative community back then in the early late 80s. And he had used a lot of actors from that company. Martin Donovan, his leading man in the early
Sure.
days, was
It's been on here before.
The wonderful late Adrian Shelley, who was his
Yes.
leading lady in his early films, was a member of that company. So I did a show with them and he saw me in it. And
wow.
it was a very social scene back then. We would do these shows and then we'd hang out afterwards. We'd drink Rolling Rock because it was the pre-craft beer era. We didn't know any better. And but I used to kind of, I was part of this theater scene where there was that had a real social scene to it as well. We would do these like late night comedy shows that were very kind of loose and we'd all hang out afterwards. So I got to know him socially for a couple of years and he saw me perform. And then I remember this very well. He had asked me to be in a couple of short films, which I did. And then one day he called me. This is probably around 1995 or something. I'd known him now for a couple of years and he called me on the phone and said, "Hey, I have a new film script and there's a part for you." And I was thrilled. I hadn't really done any movies yet. I had done these short films with him and I was still mostly doing theater downtown, quite happily too, I might add. I didn't have like a formal agent or anything at this time. It was just all who you knew in the downtown theater community. And that was the world I was a part of. And I had friends who'd been in Hal Hartley movies. And I was jealous of them. And I remember he said, "We'll meet at this, we met at the White Horse Cafe in the West Village."
Tavern.
A tavern, correct. Yes, thank you. It's been so long.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to correct you.
Yeah, Still and Thomas used to go there.
Yeah.
And I hurried over thinking, this is great. I'll be the funny waiter in one scene. I'll be like the deadpan librarian in the scene where the main character
Deadpan.
does some research. Yes.
Yep.
And I was thrilled. And then I sat down and he said, "Well, there are 3 main characters in this movie and I'd like you to be one of them." And then my head exploded, like the Tim and Eric gif of Eric Wareheim's head exploding. And then I read the script and it was fantastic. And he had basically offered me a lead role in a movie by a prominent independent director. And that is, without question, what kickstarted my career, making a living at this and doing film and TV. It all began with Hal, who—
And Simon Grimm, the role of Simon
and I
Grimm.
doubt I'm sure the bulk of your audience knows him, but for those who don't, he's a really brilliant independent film director based in New York, who's been making wonderful movies since the 90s, really on his own terms. He's just sort of always done his own thing and has an audience for that. And the other thing about him is that his films have a very distinct style. Yeah, we mentioned the word deadpan.
Right.
They're known for lack of a better word, a kind of a deadpan style. But he's also extremely funny. His films are just very funny, but in a very unique way. And he's just a brilliant writer and director. And working with him was just— and then I did some other things with him. He tends to— he's like all the great directors who then develop a sort of ensemble. So,
Right.
I played small parts in other films, people who had big parts will play small parts, and he tends to collect actors, and we're all quite happy to be collected by him. And I'll work with him again at the drop of a hat whenever.
Oh, that's good. I hope that opportunity does come around. In the meantime, people can check out James Urbaniak in CONDOR'S Nest, which again opens in theaters, on digital and on demand, on January 27th, where he will play a very convincing Heinrich Himmler.
An alternate historical Himmler, who gets his just desserts at the end of this movie. So,
well, don't
no
spoil it. Yeah, it's okay.
But it's not.
Yeah, and this one he lives and goes.
It's not surprising that the Nazis lose in our alternate history.
It does have a big open, over the top kind of denouement, if you will, outside after that scene,
no, it's
where
really
finally
fun—
the leading man is allowed to kind of do something really, big. And I mean, he's got the thankless role in the sense that, everybody around him, has stuff to really chew on to, and really use and have lots of great material. And he kind of is the straight guy.
That's true.
I kind of feel like he's got the toughest role in some ways, how to, bring that character to life, but it's I want people to go see it.
Yeah, no, and it is a kind of surprisingly old school.
It's true. I didn't think it on those terms.
Sort of World War II post-World War II caper. It's a bit of a caper, actually.
It is. Oh, totally. Yeah. It's a great way to put it. I hadn't thought of it on those terms until you mentioned it, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to do a part 2 sometime, when there's another project that would really be a treat, so.
Oh, this was a delight. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And seriously, let me know.
Okay. All right. I will. And, continued success.
Thank you kindly. Same to you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I'll see you around.
All right. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.